Hey everyone, so welcome back to my vlog. I am Donette and I'm here today to talk to you about a few things. And I am hoping that for those of us who tuned in before that you have actually returned, but for those of us who are finding my vlog new, it's a narration of our move, my husband and I, in terms of us moving from the United States, going back to Guyana, South America. And I said in my last video, if you haven't seen it, that even though we're not leaving right now, we're preparing to do so, and I wanted to document this. So once again, I'm Donette, and I'm happy to have you here with me. So if you want to go back and see the other video in terms of, so you can get a little history or a little background on me, that's fine, and my family as well. But today I want to actually talk to you about something else, that has been on my mind. And I think with every move that we make in this life, it has to be intentional, and it has to be purposeful. And I have always, I think from the time I started having children, I've always thought of myself as a very intentional person, a person who wants to create generational wealth, a person who wants to impact the world in a positive way. I want to be that person who actually have raised our children to be self-sufficient, to go out into this world, to make a good impact in it, to be memorable people or citizens of this world that can create change, that can impact lives positively. With all that said, I want to emphasize that I personally feel responsible for this move that we're making, as I always do. The very first time I call myself, or I like to look at us, or I'd like to look at us as super movers, because we are really good at going into a new space, setting things up, and then being productive in that space. So we're not so ignorant to say we're going to go and everything is going to be perfect. And I'll tell you a story. This is when we were moving from New York City, and that transition was kind of rough. And I have to also go back a little bit. My husband actually had never gone to Florida at all. But I had gone to Florida a couple of times with my friend well, she didn't go to my high school, but someone I met after high school, and then I had also gone during high school. And I knew that I wanted to live in Florida. However, he had never gone here, and he's never been here before. And so what eventually happened is that I would have to convince him. But we'll get to that in a little bit later in the story. So let me step back. So we're in New York City. He's working at the city of New York, and he's in social services. And it's incredibly hard to ask someone to leave their lives and to kind of follow you in terms of what dreams you have. My dream was to live in a warm climate. I knew from when I came to Florida many years prior to meeting my husband, while I was in high school and after high school, several years, I knew that I wanted to live in Florida. But I also knew that I needed to finish my schooling. I needed to do all that great stuff. So I wanted to get all that stuff done. So I'll go back and tell you a little bit about that later. But let's move forward a couple of years. In a couple of years after I've met my husband, and everything began to fall into place in terms of us having our children, I was working hard. And for those of us who grew up in New York City and who are career-oriented folks, we know how hard it is to not be progressive. Like, we know that we have to be in every conference. We have to be in everything that our universities have, or every tinning cup that knocks. My grandmother used to say, you're there, but in this way, it's a positive way. It was always about growing, understanding your growth as a woman, as a Black woman. I went to every conference that you can find for Black women, from Black Enterprise to Essence Magazine, to Puff Daddy, P. Diddy conferences, every single thing that was happening in the New York market in terms of entertainment, I was there. In terms of progress, I was there. I was tired though. I was always tired because I was always doing something. I was, by the time I got to 23 or 24, I already had my own office in corporate America. I was doing pretty well as a journalist. I came from community news reporting and I went into corporate news reporting, reported on companies in Silicon Valley, so all these big guys, Microsoft and all the likes, those are people that I covered as part of my beat, reporting beat. So I generally was focused on career, on building. I knew from early on, even though I had my son at a very young age, my oldest son, I knew that I didn't want to be that black girl that was predictably going to become that welfare recipient, that becomes that mom of several kids that wasn't married, and that didn't have that support system from her husband. And so I said early on, even before I met my husband, after I had my first son, that I was never going to have another kid ever again. And besides, my kid was a bad little one, so he give some trouble. And hold on, I am going to check my stove. So yes, I'm trying to cook. I am not a great cook eater. My husband is the best cook in the world, I swear, but I'm okay. So anyway, so I knew that I wasn't going to have any more kids, but of course, once I met my husband, he decided, he wanted kids. He didn't have any children, so he wanted kids, but I made him promise that he would take care of the kids while I go to work, because he needed to find a night job so that way I can go to school in the daytime and I can take care of the kids at night. But I was not gonna stay home and have kids and not be able to go to school. And once I saw how he interacted with my son, by then he's already 3 years old, I knew that it was okay. But I didn't give in that easy. I actually waited until another 3 years before I finally said okay. And so at that time, I relinquished my stance and I said, all right, I don't mind having children for this man, because he's obviously very responsible. And we're both still young at the time. We're in our maybe 23, 24 by the time we start having children together. But I had my son prior to that. With that said, he literally adopted my son, and so to this day he calls him his son. So when you hear me say our children, I'm including my son as well, which is of course his stepson. But we have two boys together. We would have two boys together. So with that said, I after having kids, I was in school while I was having the children. I had never given up school. I was in corporate America by then as well. So by the time I, 20, 24, 25 years old, like I said, somewhere around there, I can't remember the exact age, I was already in corporate America, had my own office space and everything else. So things were really going good. It was looking up for us as a young couple. I'd already completed my bachelor's by then and going on to my master's. But by the time I had our last son, that last baby was premature, or he was a preemie. And with him being preemie, I took off 6 months from my master's program, and I ended up not even going back to corporate America after that, because I really wanted to just focus on raising our family and just finishing up school. And if I'd gone back to corporate America, I would have been able to make money, but the fact is that my schooling would have suffered. And I considered what would make sense, to get my degree or to continue to work. And not have that degree. Back then, we all know, and I want to also add this part. We cannot have a progressive society unless we have an educated society. Progression and in terms of growth in any society depends on an educated society. And so those of us who argue that, okay, we know that education or the amount of education we have doesn't necessarily equal wealth. Well, if you have another answer in terms of, gosh, you're going to make everybody is going to stay out of school, and then the society is still going to progress and everything is still going to be okay, then, by all means, present your idea, and hopefully, the world follows it, and hopefully you're right. But that's not going to happen. As an educator myself, I do believe in education. I believe in the advancement of the world through education. And with my education, I put that first instead of going back out to work in corporate America. And I took a job after school because I still needed to make money. I think it made about $16 an hour. So it wasn't bad money, especially in, coming out of corporate America. I knew I was making money and I wanted to make more, but it still wasn't bad. But I also didn't work a lot of hours because I wanted, like I said, to pay attention to my family, pay attention to my kid, who was a premature baby at that time. The other two are growing very nicely, and I just wanted to be able to just relax, not be stressed. And so this after school gig actually provided that space where I could actually just just be a mom, go to school quietly and do all that stuff. Well, after as time passed by, of course you want more. And so this is where I'm getting to with my husband. So I eventually would ask my husband to come down to Florida, so that we can, at that time I'm in Manhattan, going to school, stressed out. My face, hopefully it looks clean today, but it was just broken out, like all over the place. It was just like pimples all over because I was so stressed out. I had black marks all over the place because of the fact that, again, I was so stressed out, and I was always just kind of poking at it, trying to get it off. But of course that makes it worse, as we all know. I don't know. I just it was just too much for me to handle. And eventually what would happen is that I would ask him, like I said, to come down with me. But my intention actually was kind of devious in a way. So I had came to Florida when I was in my teenage years, and I had known what Florida offered in terms of the weather, in terms of water, in terms of the beaches. I came here a couple of times, maybe 3 times. One time for a wedding, another 2 times just to hang out with my friend. And when I came, I knew immediately that I would want to live in this place. So when I was all done with school, almost done with school at NYU, I asked my husband, I said, hey, do you want to come go to Florida? Now, I said it was devious because I had a plan. I knew that if I got him down here, and remember what I said, he had never traveled to Florida before, but I knew that once I got him down here that he would fall in love with it because of the fact that he's also Guyanese, and he loves the same kind of things that I do in terms of the warm weather. He hated every time the season changed in New York. He loved the summer, absolutely hated the winter months. And once it starts getting dark and cold, he used to complain. So I knew the strategy would work. So we didn't fly. I didn't want to fly because remember I said I was stressed and I really needed time. So we took a bus. We didn't drive. We took a bus. And the bus, I don't know how many of you have traveled from New York City to the south or to Florida. It's long, like literally, I don't know if it was 72 hours to get here, with all the stops and layover and everything else and changing buses. Anyway, it was a long drive down and we needed it. We sat, we talked, we slept, we got up, hung out outside for a bit. And the Greyhound driver's like, y'all better get back on here because if you see that animal that goes like this, what is it that they have on there? I can't remember. Anyway, he says if you see that symbol, that means we've left you. So anyway, we were constantly on the go to to make sure that we got back on the bus. But we enjoyed the ride, and then we got to Florida, and lo and behold, the man fell in love. Anyway, I applied for a job at one of the colleges, and about 2 weeks later, they sent me an email, and I went into my email and saw that they accepted my application and that they wanted me to start lecturing that in that August. And so I came down. But let me also just say something, and because today is dealing with getting prepared in terms of your environment, where you're going to live, and all that stuff. I wanted to talk about that as well, the preparation part. So remember what I said before, though, that I wasn't working full time. He worked full time at the city of New York. I'm now asking him to quit his job to follow my dreams of living in warm climate. And then also, I'm the only one working. So when we initially came south, it was a rough start financially. So there were friends who helped us out. Thank God for those people. There were family members who helped us out, and all that stuff. Because I knew in my spirit that it was time to go from New York. I understood how important it was to leave. I had visions and I had dreams of either bad things or good things that were happening. I knew God was leading me. So I understood that it was time to go. And everything that God would have shown me while I was in my dream, while I was dreaming, would end up happening right here in Florida. I mean, from the day I went to get my license to, just traveling through by the school, to get to the college, I saw everything in my dream prior to me even coming here. So I knew even before I got here, when I sat at the altar that day and I cried out to God and I said, Lord, just lead us. And I knew He was leading. And so I trusted and I had faith that everything would be okay. And so I got down here and everything fell into place in that sense. But once my husband and our children came, we got an apartment to start with. The apartment was really good because it was right next door to the elementary school. And we had two kids who were in school at the time. And so the elementary kid, or the elementary age kid was right next door, or the elementary school was right next door, I'm sorry. And so therefore that kid went right there. And then the middle school one, the bus would pick him up. And then there's one that was at home still. And he went to school, I think, a couple of months later. So because of his age, he couldn't go to school when we first got here. Anyways, with that said, my husband was home, so he was able to take care of him while he was home, and like he always did. So I always say that my husband probably slept about maybe about 2 years of sleep that he gained in a 7-year or 8-year period, because pretty much, having the kids and him working the graveyard shift at the city of New York, and then me going to school, literally, by the time I got home from school, he was ready. He could barely sleep because the kids didn't go to daycare. And we just were sending them to school as the age came that they could go to school. So he looked at them all day after his graveyard shift. So if there were 2 kids at home, he looked at them. Then he had to pick one up from school. Then, of course, that older one would get into fights, and he would have to go referee and make sure he gets home. And, all sort of stuff was happening. They're boys. And then the middle one came, and then he, eventually he went to school. But by the time he went to school, the other one was already underway. And, so there's another kid. And so, yes, my husband did not sleep for several years. So when he got to Florida and he wasn't working, he slept. Unlike me, I slept at nights and then got up in the day, and I went to, got the kids ready, did whatever they had to, washed on the weekends, went to church on Sundays, braided hair because the boys had hair. They each had hair to braid, and so we did life as a young couple. But one of the things I want to say is that I had always known my destiny was to do more in this life. One of the things I didn't want to happen is that I did not want to become that black girl that I guess people would say she's on welfare, or she had a bunch of kids, and the man left. And I didn't want to become that person. And I know I mentioned this, I would have mentioned this earlier, but I didn't want to. That wasn't the dream for my life. My grandpa had came home to Guyana. He worked here in the United States, lived here in the United States for a couple of years when I was growing up back home before we came. And he came back home and he said to me, and he said it right into my spirit. I absolutely will never forget. He looked at me and he said, "Donette, if you are smart, one day when you come to America, you will do well." He says, go to school and do what you've got to do. And he said that you will be okay once you come. So when I came to America, I came with the intentions to do well. I came with the intentions to monopolize, so to speak, on every opportunity that is presented to me. When our parents came here, they came here at an older age, and grandparents, right? And so it's not to say they couldn't go to school, but uh, that's not something that they chose. So it was up to us to change the future of ourselves. And also, they have given us the opportunity, but we wanted to make sure that for us, we needed to go to school and do what we had to in order to accomplish that so called American dream, the white picket fence, the things that we want. And so, with that said, I decided that I wanted to go to school in Manhattan, and I took the exam. My Jamaican teacher, Miss Reed, I'll never forget her. In middle school, I took the exam and I passed that test because my grandpa spoke to me and spoke into my spirit, and he told me that I would be good if I go to school, and if I do everything that I need to, and if I'm smart, that I will be successful in America. I already had that spoken into me at about maybe 8 years old. And so I remembered that, and he meant everything to me. So when I came here, even though I went to school in Brooklyn for the first year, middle school, I actually wanted not to be in Brooklyn. I wanted to be in Manhattan because my association with Manhattan is that it was filled with business people and smart people and people who were progressive. And even though I didn't understand the word progressive at the time in my, kind of teenage mind, I understood what success meant. And success to me meant at the time that, go to school, be in Manhattan, get one of those nice office jobs, dress like one of those women did with the high heels and the skirts and just be dynamic. So I understood my worth at a very early age. So I ended up going to school in Manhattan, in the middle of Park Avenue and 33rd. That school is no longer in existence. Of course, it's been almost 30 years. But I just have to tell you that that had made such an impact in my life. And my grandpa spoke into my heart, into my soul. And because of everything that he said, I just wanted so much. And so it's intentional when we make a move to make sure that our children can grow from that move. Our generations to come will grow from whatever decisions we make in this lifetime. That we understand, or I too understand, that everything that I did, everything that my husband did, to make sure that our children are grounded, that they're well prepared, that they're doing what they have to so that they can go out and they can take advantage of all the opportunities that will come to them. I was just looking at a video today, and the lady was saying that she's a financial coach, and she was saying that it's important that every single person have a home-based business. PhD in finances and everything else that she has. She's a very smart woman. She talks about black women as well. She talks about some of the mistakes that she's made. And she said that, she wanted to, because she was a finance major, she wanted to teach other people how not to make those mistakes. And so with her saying that, I was like, and then she said also that you can actually pay your kids, which I've heard many times over, but she explained how you can pay your kids. I'm like, oh, I should have taken advantage of that, but either way. But now that I'm, planning forward, now that they're older, I can use the one in college, because he's an art student, to do some artwork for the facilities, for one of the facilities that I have. So I'm glad to learn that. That's to say that this progressive mindset is absolutely important. So let's get to what it is that I want to discuss. With every move that we've made, it's always been intentional. It's always been determined in terms of where we want to go. And this move is no different as well. There are a couple of things that we have to consider. And because we're super movers and we're really good at moving and we're really good at settling in, and because of the fact that we are, just really good at understanding our environment, what it offers, and to understand that it has to offer something in order for us to be there, to go there. This is not just about going to a place and live in epiphany somewhere and just kind of lay back and never do anything forever. I'm going in my 40s, like I said before, because I want to have that energy, because I want to be able to give back to the community. I know I haven't told you about my program and overseas in detail, but hopefully one day I'll be able to explain some of what I do overseas. And so I've done the giving back stuff, and now it's time that I focus on, building my business. So when we step down in terms of, when we left our property in Georgia and rented that out, when we came to where we're at now, the city that we're in right now, we rented huge. I mean, big time, because of the fact that, again, we still had the kids at home and so on, because the house in Georgia was pretty sizey. The house in the city that we're at was even bigger than the one that we had in Georgia. But once the kids began to leave to college and different, towards their futures, we decided that we're going to downsize. And then guess what happened? We went really, really small, very tiny, right? And like I said recently, that we're close to the beach and we enjoy that, or I enjoy it, so to speak. But definitely, we're at a place that is much, much smaller than we used to. And again, I'll give you a little tour one day, but it's online all over, because I do decor as part of my side gig, so I'm always showing folks, my space. But yeah, that's probably something in the background that you can see. Anyway, I'll be able to give you. It's not a big tour. It doesn't take long. It's literally it's a tiny spot, and but I can just walk you through one day to show you what it is that I've done with it and explain why I did what I did, or select the kind of decor that I did. Anyway, with that said, just know that we're considering the space that we're going to go into. We're considering what it's going to cost. Even though my grandma has a place and I can go there, I really didn't want to go there. Not only because I've crowded her space up with a lot of stuff, because actually that particular space, when we moved from Georgia, I sent a whole bunch of stuff. Sent ceiling fans, all the furnitures we sent down there, so that filled up the space. And she's got a pretty decent sized house too. And then what I did is all the stuff for my business, I have it stored there, because I have no other place to store it that would be secure. So I have it stored at her place, in my room, because I have a room there. And then also, even I took over another room, which is my mom's room. So she's trying to get me out of that room with all my extra stuff, but I've been, just kind of not doing it so far, and she's okay with it. But anyway, I'll try to get it out this summer, hopefully. With that, the space is important, so I'm thinking, this is my thoughts are, we're going to rent. And we're probably going to rent from a friend of mine who built down there already. We don't want to go down and just build in any location. We're going to have to find a land anyway. And so with finding the land, I'm pretty sure it's going to take a little time to do so. And so, and that land should be in a place that we want to stay long term. And with that said, we'll just rent until we find and we build. Now, financial security is absolutely important, so I will continue to work. Working online is not something new to me. Even before the pandemic, I taught online anyway, and teaching online, whether it was hybrid classes, meaning both online and in person, and versus fully online courses. I did that for a long time anyway, so it's normal. The only thing is now everything is online, and we're not able to go to the classroom as much. Well, I haven't been going. There are professors that are back there already, and I've chosen not to go until I get my shot. Yeah, I'm taking the shot. So don't get on my link to say, oh yeah, there's something wrong with it, because I'm too smart to realize that there's nothing wrong with this shot. People are just paranoid for no reason, in my opinion. But it's up to you. You don't have to do what other people are doing. You do you all day. That's what I say. You're free to. But for me and my husband, we're definitely taking the shot. With all that said, once we have selected the home where we want to stay, and once we have decided that, okay, this business is the one that we want to run, that we want to continue to build. I think that will make a big difference in terms of our motivation to go. I think that also we are knowing that I have a job still, because I can see, like I said, I'll be teaching online. Knowing that I have a job, that will be very helpful because I'll continue to make the salary that I make here in the U.S. And we will also be considering transportation. We want something that is going to hold 4x4, something with an open back, something that allows for to put load on it and take it off, because the kind of business that we're doing, we're going to need to definitely have transportation to be able to do so. So I have spoken to an aunt of mine who I've asked to look into. I know she worked for the government for many years. So that I can avoid those taxes. I've heard online and via YouTube that a lot of what we pay in Guyana for a vehicle is the taxes, and when you're coming from overseas, maybe that makes it worse. And unless you work with the government, I guess it makes it worse. Period. So I am looking for someone who in my family who can help me purchase, and who wouldn't need to purchase in the future, because one of the things that I've considered is, if I ask a younger person and they want to purchase later, would they be able to? I'm not sure if anyone knows that answer, but either way, I didn't want to ask a younger person to do it because I feel that they may have some concerns about whether they're able to purchase when that time comes, because they're all very productive citizens in this world. So the people that I'm talking about, so I know there's going to become a time, if they haven't bought yet, that they will definitely want to buy for themselves. So I don't want to interrupt that. I don't want to disrupt that process for them. That wouldn't be fair. So I would rather ask someone who's a senior to do it and wouldn't have a problem doing so. And my aunt said she would absolutely love to help me, and that's why I love her. Okay. So that's not why I love her, but definitely you understand what I'm saying. She's absolutely a wonderful person, period. Okay, so with that, I want to consider also where the grocery stores are when as we choose a location to live. I don't want to live where, and the good thing about Guyana is that there are places all over, but there are always going to be materials that you want that you're going to have to go to the city. I will not live in the city, that's for sure. I'm not a city girl. I've never had a city girl mindset. I like more of a suburban life, or more of a semi-city life, between the two, if that makes any sense. So I don't want too much of the city. I don't want too much of the country. I want like a combination of the two. And so I know there are going to be moments when I have to go to the city. And I don't mind going to the city, by the way. It's just that I want to leave, and that's one of the reasons why, even where I lecture now, I lecture in the bigger city area, but I love to jump in my car and drive home to my more quiet community that I live in. So pretty much that's it. Let me see. I'm ready. Even as I talk about this, I smile a lot, not only because that's what I do anyway, but because of the fact that it's elated my heart to be able to know that I will soon, within a couple of years, be able to make this transformation from the United States to Guyana, and be able to pursue the other things that I want to. And once again, like I said, this isn't about just going and living in solitude and laying back. I'm not at that age. I've got too much energy. It's about going, monopolizing once again, enjoying life, enjoying the breeze, enjoying the coconut water. I've got a lot in me to do. I want to be able to put other people to work, so that way they can have a sustainable life as well. Because if if you provide a job for them, then they're able to also provide a sustainable life for themselves and their children, and send those kids to school with appropriate materials that they need, and they can one day come out to be citizens of this world that impact the world positively as well. So it all makes sense to me in terms of what it is that I want to do, and how it is that I want to impact the environment that I'm walking into. And I am ready. I am hopeful. I am prayerful. And even though I don't know what tomorrow holds, and none of us does, I am so looking forward to it. Thank you so much for listening. And I went a little bit over time today, but I just want to thank you for listening to my vlog and for coming back at any time. So for now, it's just going to be total narration in terms of plans and issues. No particular, if when I travel, I'll let you know, because once I get my COVID shot, I'll be able to travel and kind of show you around the places that I'm thinking about and things that I'm able to do once I go back to Guyana. And I'm hoping that will be this July that I'm going to travel. All right. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, and thanks for hanging with me. Bye bye.